Hello everyone, Down to Dawn here again with the next update on my 83 Mustang GT restoration project. As you can see, this is the rear end out of the parts car. I got the parts car all flipped over and was able to remove this rear axle. This one is the original 7.5 inch with the traction lock, and it also has these little slap retraction bars on them that came from the factory. See, they bolt up here, come around here, and this rubber piece actually belongs over here. There's a little plastic pad that's kind of falling apart there, but those were factory installed. So those are all going to be tearing apart, cleaned up, and put back on for nostalgia. I've got all new bushings for all this stuff, so this whole rear end will be completely tore down, shredded, to every single piece part, and the whole thing will be rebuilt. I'll check out the gears. I'm hoping it has 308s in it. That would have been the factory setup back in the day for stick cars. Automatics had some 327s, I believe. But again, this is just a standard old 9-inch drum brakes, but it's original. I'll just put all new bearings in it, all new seals, and rebuild the control arms, repair the slap bars, and put it back in, new shocks. So here's what's left of the shell of this car. I'm not going to don't need the upper control arms. Turns out that floor was rusted through. You can see pinholes through it. So that's right where the muffler was. I won't be reusing these control arms, so I'm not bothering to take them off. Everything on this car was extremely tight. Alright, I'll take it back inside. The dog's over there digging in the tire. Alright. The bumper I'm going to use is actually back there. That rear bumper I need to bring inside, get out of the weather. One of the other things I did was I got the hatch off. This is the hatch I will be using on the car. As you can see, it was already had the spoiler on it, which I removed shortly after I got the car. For some reason, the inside of this car had some kind of fire in it, because that's smoke damage, not fire. But I'll be, you can see the molding up here, the butyl tape they used to put the windows in is burnt and crispy along that edge. So, but the thing's in great shape. I'll try and save this trim. If not, I'll find something that's pretty simple trim. But this whole thing will be gutted and rebuilt. I got to put that in the garage before I close up tonight. I'll probably be reusing that trim because it was already blacked out. The other car had the chrome because it was a GLX model. So, alright, that's what I did last Sunday. Last Saturday, for my dog, I ended up putting in one of those invisible fences. You can see I got all the little white flags there for him. So he's still in training. There they are. They're about every 10 feet or so, all the way around the property line, all the way along the woods on the west side, all around to the north side. They're all the way around over to my fence between my house and the neighbors, all the way around front of the yard, back around the driveway. So he's in training. We don't have the collar on him at this time, but slowly over a couple of weeks we'll get him used to it. He was on one when I first picked him up when he was 7 months old, so he's picking up quickly. Alright, so what I've done now is I decided to get some work done on these torque boxes, get these things installed. I got them both welded up. There's this one here. Where did I put the other one? It should be sitting back here somewhere. There she is. As you can see, they're all welded together. And then I took a little one of these flap type grinder wheels and ground them down smooth. Let's see if I got it. Might be on the grinder. Yeah, these guys right here. If you've never used these wheels before, I tell you, they are impressive. This one's almost gone, but surprisingly that thing still grinds because there's still material left. That removes material extremely nice, and it's not real gougy either. It makes a nice smooth finish. As you can tell by the boxes here, you can see where I ground all these edges, because I fuse welded everything after it was welded on all the tabs. These were the jigsaw puzzle tabs for assembling this thing was, and it makes a nice smooth finish, and I just rounded off all the corners. Okay, and then here you can see is that stiffener plate that goes all the way up to here, all the way in, and there was 10 holes that welds this to the body. And as you can see, I welded all the way around with the TIG on this side, and then had to cut these windows out so you can have access to those holes so you can move the bowl around. And then they give you this little framework here to weld around, so you use that for the template to cut inside and outside. The inside doesn't get one, but it does get, like I said, this little piece here. I still have to put that in place. This thing's fit, this whole unit fits so well. It's hard to do with one hand, but then that'll get zapped in there. But before I put it in there, underside of this thing, all the way under here, all the way around bottom, all around this side is all primed with the green acid etching primer, and then I had some kind of aluminum colored paint I threw on the back side of all this, and I painted all this up, primed it, painted all the bare metal so they're protected. And then the inside I got to try and get some paint in there, but the rest of this thing I'll do the etch primer on this, and then when the car gets the whole epoxy primer sealer, we'll seal it all in. So that's what I've been up to pretty much yesterday and today. And then I did go back through and zap a couple of these little spots. I noticed there were still some small pinholes. Went in and filled them in. And then as I also on that scrap car outside, I removed the quarter glass, the rear windows, side windows, quarter glass. I've got 2 sets there because I also removed the ones out of this car. So now this car is literally completely torn down and empty. There's nothing left in it. I went in and pulled out all the little plastic stops, wire harness things. Alright, let me go ahead and crank this thing around. Yeah, you can kind of see there. I'm going to bring this thing upright to show you what I found, which was extremely surprising to me because I did not show until I hit with a wire wheel. I can tell this thing's out of balance now from taking some of the weight out of the top end. It's a little top, I have a top heavy or what, but it's hard to roll over now. I'm going to bring it around this way. Yeah, it's a little bottom heavy right now. Because I took weight out of the top. Alright, but that's still a sweet setup. What I did is, in here, you can see this thing is kind of rusted. This roof comes down around into here, and it's extra long, and I ended up cutting some of it back because there's so much rust under there. It was basically bubbled up looking paint, hit a wire wheel, and it came through as rust. And then also what happened was, as the wire brush hit this piece here, it was just all full of holes. As you can see, I got a chunk cut out of it right now. That was the only option, was to get rid of it. Let's see, I've got the old piece laying right here. So this came out of there. You can see all the holes that were in that thing. And they weren't visible until I hit it with the wire wheel and kind of removed the paint. And I'm like, why in the world is that thing rusted through? It's not in a spot that I thought would retain water, because even if water gets in here, you can see there's a square piece in there. You can see all the way through it. But this is kind of like a box channel in here, and it folds down around. This thing's like 3 layers thick, but it doesn't touch anything. Water should easily drain down through there. It's all open. I mean, you can flashlight, you can see down in there, but it all drains. And I'm like, why in the world would that have done that? Before I cut this out, I didn't know that was in there. But what turned out to be the major culprit was this panel, see it, roof panel, is like epoxy sealed, glued to this panel. And they put so much in there that this is what happened. This filled up between the 2 panels. Just all this stuff, it's hard, so it's an epoxy type material. I thought it was foam when I first saw it, which made sense. But what happened was that kind of filled in the gap between them, and moisture, these things will sweat in from cold to hot, and that moisture got in there and got trapped between these pieces and rotted it out. So if you ever see Mustangs, I mean, you want to look at that. I've seen them before, and this one here looked good until I cleaned some of the paint off to get this rust here. But that whole thing was rusted all the way up under there, all because of this stuff. Up in that area, you see there's none in there. It was filled all the way along this trough, all the way against this piece in here. Now you can see that looks black because I used my rust converter. I use that stuff. It's like water. Just put a little bit in a cup here, a little acid glue brush, brushed it on. And I wanted to get that welded up today, but it says give it 24 hours to dry. But that was pretty much kind of clean, bare looking metal. I got in there and sprayed it with my phosphoric acid, this stuff. Sprayed it on there full strength. Got in there with a regular big old wire brush, and got in there with the little wire brush and scraped it off. And there was a lot of flaky stuff in there, so I got it all off there. I washed it out real good with water, and then I air dried it and let it dry for a while, and then I brushed that stuff on. So it's doing its job. It turned it black just like it's supposed to. I'll have to probably clean this here because I've already made me a strip now to patch it back up. And that's what this little fella right here is going to do. I'm just going to go in there and I'm going to weld that into place. After cutting this loose, this kind of dropped down a little bit, so I'm going to have to put a piece of foam or something under there to hold that up. Get this thing to line up better. And I left, you can see there's a good 3/16 of an inch there on this corner. So hopefully I've got a very small, like a 1/32 TIG tungsten rod for the torch, TIG torch. And then I went and bought, I have a 1/16 inch wire, but it's too thick. So, and they didn't have any, so I ended up buying some Meg wire. This is 030, I think. 30, yeah, 030 thousandths. So, and then my TIG torch tip, I think I set it over here. Yeah. So this is a real fine, that's about the same size as that wire, and that's what you want. So when I put that on there, I should be able to turn the amperage way down to, like 30 amps, 1 amp per thousandths. And I should be able to tack that in, tack it all the way up through. Just keep working on it little by little and just keep this cool and hopefully not distort this too awful much. But that was a big surprise. I thought I was done with the rust. Oh, then there was a couple little spots in here. You can see I had to touch up these little spots here. There were some holes. I still got that hole over there, that one right there, and I hope that's the last of them. So, but all I was doing was cleaning this out, and then afterwards this will all get seam sealed. This whole corner was pretty much kind of a seam sealer Bondo because this leading process in here. So I got to get this thing all washed up, cleaned up, and then get that stuff ready for Bondo and such. But once I get this tacked in, get that closed up, and I can continue on. But what I'll do next is, since I've got the one torque box done, here's that plate. I guess, well, even that I painted the back side of that before I welded it in place. Surprisingly, that paint doesn't burn off that much. You can see it only burned off about the size of a nickel or most of the size of a quarter. Most of the paint stayed on there. But it was just something to give it some protection, because once that's in there, you can't get any paint on it afterwards. So that's kind of where I'm at now, folks. Here's the hatch off of this car. I gotta get this one out of here. It does have a good glass. The hatch is good. I mean, it's just got this damage here is about the worst of it. Everything else on it's fine. I'll save the glass. I'll save the hatch. I'm not sure where I'll put it, but I'll save it. It's just all covered in dust from grinding, painting, dusty as hell. So that's kind of where I'm at. Like I say, I'm going to be using the unit out of the white car. This one here looks to be pretty rough, so I got a guy that's going to come and take the car, and I'll probably give him this piece too, because there's the control arms off of the car outside. And then again, that's the hood I'm using with the scoop, and the doors. The doors, they got to be cut off right on the top of this triangle. I got to zip them off there and flush with the top of the door there. So that can be cut anytime, but right now they work good for handles. You can grab the thing, carry it, and they are heavy. So that's kind of where I'm at now. I don't think there's any other updates on this other than finish cleaning the bottom of the residue from the undercoating on the one half, which I think is this half here. Still got some cleaning to do under there, and get that last box welded in. You can kind of just see it in there, in that hole right there. So get this side done. Like I say, I was saying probably the end of the month. The weather's finally, I mean, this past week was 40s and 50s all week, so it was a cold week. Today was nice. It was still only mid-50s, but it was enough to work. Yesterday I actually had to fire up the torpedo heater to get some heat in here to work. So I'm going to try to do a little bit more on this. The weather is finally breaking. I'm going to get back on the Corsair, leave this thing set. I need to kind of get everything pushed out of here so I can come in with a pressure washer and blast this car and clean up the mess I've made with the acid. Try to get the stuff washed out of here. It's a weak, it's strong enough to remove rust, but it's weak enough that it's not going to really chew on the metal, but it will leave a sticky mess in there. Plus it needs to be cleaned out, so I'll hit it with a pressure washer and get all that dust out of there. So then I did buy the paint this weekend. I checked a couple different places. One place was almost $400 a gallon just for the silver base coat that I'm going to use. The second place I went to is a PPG store, and their top of the line was, oh my God, $675 a gallon. That's just for the base coat. That's no reducers, hardeners, or anything, no clear. That's just for a gallon of base. And then they also sell, PPG has their Omni line of paints, which is their lower level paints that they won't. I used to hear that the paint was for the general hobbyist like me, but they don't warranty that paint. Whereas if you buy their top of the line stuff and you're doing a body shop and you have a problem with the paint, they'll warranty it, but they won't warranty the Omni line. So they have Omni, Omni Plus, and then PPG's top of the line. The Omni Plus, I asked the guy, I says, what's the difference? And he said it's just to get more update with the more recent pearl finishes and different tints and things they have, so they've added more to the Omni line. Some of that stuff you can't get in the Omni, you got to get it in the Omni Plus. So I imagine you pay a little more for it. But it'd be like my wife's Kia, it's a pearl finish, so you might be able to get it in that color. So that's what that is. Oh, and then also I was watching a new guy's channel who's got an '89 Mustang he's working on. And he watched him, he just started posting here this past year. And he's only got a handful of videos, but he was just at the phase where he was painting his car. It's a real nice dark gray colored thing, Euro Mustang. But anyway, he had his gallon of paint, big gallon can like that, and he had one of them mixers that they have in the paint stores when they have all the paints on the shelf that they pull off to blend and make your mix out of. And he had one of those paint mixers. He says, yeah, you can go to the paint stores and buy them. They sell them. I was like, really? So I went there and I asked him, says, you sell them? So sure do. I said, how much are they? So he looks it up in the book and he says, $10.31. I'm like, what? I said, what? I says, was it 110? He says, no, $10.31. It's like, give me one. So I bought one. They're plastic, but they have a nice little double paddle in them, and the bottom paddle, the lever actually raises up and down the rod, and you can actually push it all the way down till it scrapes the bottom of the can and just hook a little cordless drill to it. But $10, and then it seals. It's like a maple syrup thing, you push the button, a little nozzle slides open, exposes it, and you just pour it out, and you got all that mess with the cans, like this, trying to pour the shit out of a can. They all look like that. So that thing eliminates that problem. And for $10, cheap. I'll have to go get a couple more. I need one for that primer I used on this thing. It was extremely thick. It's in the house. So, alright folks, I guess that's going to do it for this week. Had to move some parts around, but I got to reorganize some stuff in here, make room. This kind of stuff was getting in the way of trying to roll this thing around on the rotisserie. But so that's going to be the update for this weekend. See, the hood roof doesn't look too bad right now. Hopefully it'll stay that way. Like I said, I'll probably plug away at this, get this suspension boxes welded in and finished up, and then I can start moving stuff around and get back to work on this boy. So you'll know I'm working on the airplane when it says Corsair update instead of Mustang update. Alright folks, I'm gonna cut her off here, and as always, feel free to leave any comments, questions, or concerns as they come along. I'll answer them as I see fit, and hope everybody enjoys these updates. So for now, this is Down and On out.